Okay, so the prosecution cross-examining Brett Hankison there. Lisa, do you think that the prosecution was able to successfully call into question the legitimacy, if you will, or the reasonableness of the maneuvers or decisions that Brett Hankison took in discharging his weapon under that sort of totality of circumstances he was facing?
I think so. I think they were great questions to try to find out, again, what was his mindset? What happened? What did he see? And when he said, I didn't know. And when he said, I heard multiple style calibers, which he thought was a long weapon, an assault rifle, and the duty weapon, which is what I carried, was a Glock 22 40 caliber. In the end, we know that the individual in the house who actually did fire, it was a 9 millimeter. And he already said he was aware that Mattingly had went down, so he knew one of his brothers was already down based on that first shot. Afterward, it was the same exact weapon. It was the duty weapon of those police officers, which was the 40 cal Model 22 Glock. So there wasn't a series of different bullets being fired. So it just shows you when you are in the mindset of where you are at that moment, your perception is not an exact science because it's fight or flight. And I think he was so focused on the tunnel vision of seeing those flashes that he needed to get in on the action and do what he did, which ultimately was firing through a backdrop that he was not able to see through.
Yeah, and the jury now considering whether that action, those actions, rises to the level of criminality under those charges of wanton endangerment. We're on verdict watch here at Law and Crime on the Hankison trial. You don't want to miss that. If we get a verdict in today, we will bring it to you. Okay, so that is the testimony of Brett Hankison testifying in his own defense yesterday. Lisa, you are a former law enforcement officer, member of the SWAT team. You are someone who's experienced what it's like to be in the shoes of a law enforcement officer. That's something that not many people can relate to, and they hear about certain occurrences, incidents, but you're really not in the shoes of an officer responding to what could be a volatile situation. Lisa, hearing the testimony of Brett Hankison, do you think that he made out a good case for himself in terms of why he discharged his weapon in the manner he did?
As he laid it out, it made perfect sense. Initially, seeing this at face value of somebody, an officer, going to a window and shooting through an unopened window where you don't have visibility with blackouts, with vertical blinds, et cetera. It's the biggest no-no in all of department training, whether you're a police officer or you're on a specialized team like SWAT and you're doing entries. So at face value, I would say no, horrible, big mistake, et cetera. But now hearing him and getting that version of the story of seeing his mentor and friend go down and then continually hearing firing, he didn't know whether or not it was his guys going after the bad guy or he needed to help take out the threat because he didn't know if anybody else was even in that fatal funnel. So for him, he was in life-saving mode and he took action based on the flashes that he saw continuing, not knowing whether or not it was his guys returning fire.
Yeah, and Lisa, we've seen some high-profile cases in which police officers are on trial. Derek Chauvin, the Potter trial. Do you see a shifting change? Especially, I'm a former prosecutor. As a prosecutor, you work hand in hand with law enforcement. For me, I'm here in New York City. Those NYPD officers and detectives became great friends. We relied on one another in doing our job in terms of prosecutor and law enforcement. But do you see a shift here in the country? Say the blue code of silence may be coming down, and now law enforcement and prosecutorial agencies holding law enforcement officers more accountable for their actions in the field?
Well, bad police, bad apples, they need to be held accountable. No question about that. It has to happen. And I think the biggest help in all of this has been body cams. So even on a search warrant, a body cam would have been useful. I mean, granted, the SWAT team wears a lot of gear and they're putting on 25 extra pounds on their body with all the equipment. But a body cam is going to help the jurors and any situation where there's doubt on whether or not police officers used more force than they should have, excessive force. Now we're going to start to have answers because you will have citizens come forward who are not always truthful and say, well, this happened, or I did put my hands up and I did obey the law, et cetera. And it's not the case. So having body cams and also cams inside vehicles, I think tends to be the progression where we're going across the country. And in some cases, we don't have it, and it just has to do with budgeting and refunding the police.
Absolutely, we all hope that now this will lead to more, policing that is more community-driven, more responsible, and in a manner that gains the trust of the public rather than pushing the public away. Thank you for joining me, Lisa. Thank you for watching here. For the record, Anjanette Levy in the afternoon session is up next here on Law and Crime.